Hey, Peter, you mentioned the emotional sort of aspect of betting in the previous part. And I'm interested in that because anybody that's ever bet, what they call it in the UK is going on tilt. Everything's going horribly wrong. All of a sudden, you just go mad. You're trying to bash your way out. And that
Yeah,
used to be when the bookmaker had the punter then, give him a bit of credit and not allowed anymore.
yeah.
So tell us a bit more about that. What's your opinion?
Well, in Australia, there used to be a saying, we didn't call it tilting. It would be that people would say, "Off goes your head and on goes a pumpkin," when you try to cheat. Um, Look, I think that my observation is that a lot of professional punters want to act as if they're just men of steel, and that they're not affected by losing runs or losing in a close photo and whatever else. But I'm sure that that's not correct. And there is definitely an emotional aspect to punting, and it doesn't matter who you are. I've had runs where for a month at a time, I just can't do anything wrong, and I feel completely bulletproof. A very good friend of mine who's an excellent judge in Hong Kong, champion punter. He's in his 60s. He said to me, "It's the most amazing game. When you're having a winning run, you just know that you're Superman and you're bulletproof. And when you're having a losing run, you start saying to yourself, I don't know how I ever thought I could win at this. No one can ever win at it." Now, there definitely is that psychological and emotional thing. And I read a book of Nicholas Taleb one time. I can't remember the name of the book, but he was talking about, and he said, even if you have a model that's 93% guaranteed to win on the stock market in a year, in any given year, there'll be 3 losing months. You'll have 9 winning months, 3 losing months, even if you're 93% guaranteed to win. And he said, the average person can't stomach the 3 losing months. And that's what I see all the time with people I know who are, say, friends of mine, but they're not professionals, and you give them some tips and they might win one week and lose the next week, and they can't stand the losing. And that's something that you've really got to guard yourself against, because everyone has losing runs, and there'll be a time where what you just were talking about then, where it just seems like the universe has conspired against you, and every horse you're backing is getting beaten by a nose, or then the next one misses the start. I remember 2 Saturdays in a row, I backed one of my biggest bets of the day. Not only the jockey didn't fall, he just fell off. The horse was racing, say, 3 wide, and suddenly the jockey had fallen off for no apparent reason. Well, 2 weeks in a row, and I was having a bad run. It was really like you're going, is God just telling me to stop? So everyone has that. If you pretend you don't have it, you're not being honest. And as a poor indication into my character, I used to have like about 3 broken office chairs outside I had a ground floor office where I used to live, and there was a couple of them outside just in pieces. My mother came to visit one time and said, "What are these chairs doing?" Well, it was when the horse had been beaten in a photo and I couldn't take it anymore.
But people would be glad to know that people like you feel like that as well.
So that's something everyone needs to be betting within their temperament and within their means. And if you're doing it for fun, don't bet too much. If you're trying to make a profit, just be on guard that there's going to be losing runs, and it's going to seem desolate at times, for sure.
Okay, now something that professional restricted punters in the UK eye with envy are the fabled rules that in Australia bookmakers have to lay people like you to lose a certain amount of money.
Yes.
That in reality, is that good or bad for punters like you?
No, it's a positive if we're talking about starting from where we were. It's crazy. When I first went to the races when I was first a bookie in 1980, whatever it was, you were compelled in those days, even if you just started off and you had a bank of $10,000 to your name, you had to bet to lose 1,000. And when you went onto the rail, if you went onto the rails in Canberra in those days, to lose 5,000, and if you didn't bet someone to lose 10,000, you were considered to be an embarrassment. And there wasn't any. If there was no prospect you could not accept the bet. If you hesitated, they would go and get a betting steward, and the steward would make you have the bet. We got to a point in Australia before the minimum bet limit came in, where the corporates came in and restricted the betting, and so some of the jurisdictions have made it so you have to bet people to lose $2,000, which is such a small amount of money in the context of these billion-dollar companies. So it's better than the alternative, which is if you're betting on the sport, let's say in Australia, and you have any idea of what you're doing, there's no minimum bet limit. They can just let you on to win nothing, or $5 or $10. So on the major meetings in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, in Australia, certainly on race day, they have to bet you to win $2,000. And there is 30 odd corporates, so there's probably more.
So you sit there and you bet under your own name, and you can bet with 30 odd to win $2,000.
Yeah.
And so for your sort of staking, that would be enough.
Yeah, it has to be enough now. And they're only compelled to bet you once. So if you took 5-2 and it's now 4-1, you can't back it again at the 4-1 with that same bookie. But still, and there are bookmakers here who will bet you to win more than the 2,000 as well. So you can, without an enormous amount of difficulty, on a Saturday race meeting or a metropolitan race meeting in Australia, you'd be able to get on to win 50,000.
Right. Okay. So practical stuff now. People like to know. Do you record all bets on spreadsheets, that sort of thing?
I used to, and I had an excellent program, and just recently something's gone wrong with it. So I've reverted to the old sheets of paper, but I will get that spreadsheet up and running again. Yeah. So
Right,
yes.
Okay. So do you use a betting bank? Have you got a tank that you keep separately just for punting?
No, I've never done that. I know a lot. I know some people who do that, but that's never been something that I've done. So I'm not a Kelly better I'm betting a certain percentage of my bank on this and it goes up and down. I'm more of the old style punter that goes, I've marked this evens. I'm backing all horses I mark evens to win whatever it is, 10,000 or 20,000 at my price. So if I've got an evens in that instance, I'll have 10,000 on it. If I've got 2-1, I'll have 5,000, 3-1, 3,000 sort of thing.
Okay, so you've got a sort of a staking plan, but it's your own.
Yeah, it's a staking plan that's really more to do with what price I have it. And in some ways, I take into account the differential between that price and what's being bet.
Okay, so you're talking in quite big figures there. So have you gone past the stage now where you have to win? I mean, are you comfortable and you're sort of doing this to enhance your wealth rather than having to get enough to pay the mortgage next month?
Yeah, what's happened for me is probably in the last 5 years, I'm betting much less than I used to. So at one stage, I really was quite a much bigger bettor than I am now, and would win, very large amounts on any given day, but lose large amounts. And I just found that really was taking a toll mentally on me. And I just decided that there was no need to keep betting in that fashion. And I've cut it back to probably about a third of what I was once doing. And I never have any sleepless nights now. So
Okay, what's
answer to your question, yes.
What's the worst losing run you've ever endured, and how did you cope? We talked about the mental thing. How did you cope with it, apart from throwing chairs out of windows and things?
I've only done that a couple of times, but it has happened. Um, about 4 or 5 years ago in Australia, there was a spring carnival in Melbourne, which goes on for a long time, a couple of months, 3 months maybe. And I think that the average price of the winners over that whole carnival was 12-1. And there was a couple of consecutive days where I lost 100% on turnover. I didn't get a collect on those Melbourne races, not one collect. And so that definitely was my worst run. Yeah.
Okay, so do you constantly sort of analyze your bets and try and work out why you made the bad ones?
No, I don't. I have a good friend who drives me crazy on a Sunday morning, ringing me up going, he's a very good punter, but he does love to analyze why backed such and such and how he should have done it differently. And whereas to me, I spend a lot of time on what I would call the back form, so analysing the races that have been run, but I don't really agonize over I made that mistake, because I know Harry hindsight will tell you all the right horses to back, and it's of not much use going forward.
Is being a professional punter you now? I mean, are you, do you enjoy it? Are you happy to be doing what you're doing, or do you see a point where you're going to retire from it and just go and swim in the Byron Bay and watch the whales and stuff?
Well, a lot of my friends would say I do far much of that already. No, look, my partner, she often says to me on Saturday morning, oh, I can tell it's race day, because I've got a real joy of life about me and a real spring in my step. And it's a funny thing. When I was working at the Gold Coast, there was another bookie on the rails there called Terry Page, and he was a very famous Australian bookie, but he was he was getting on a little bit, and he was a tough man and whatever else. And I remember on Melbourne Cup Day one day turning up at the races, and he asked me how did I sleep or something, and I said not bad. And he said I can never sleep on the night before the Melbourne Cup. I'm always too excited. And you would never have expected. He had a very sort of dour demeanour, but I definitely really love racing, and I love betting, and I love everything about it. So yeah, it's quite a big race night here tonight at Moonee Valley, and it's the Cox Plate tomorrow, and it was the Caulfield Cup last week. It's a huge races. Then onto the Melbourne Cup Carnival. No, I love it. Yeah.
Okay, last couple of questions. As we mentioned earlier, Rob Warhouse, who I'm lucky enough to know as well, marked my card about you. Do you leave him out, or do you ring him up and say, you got to lay me the £2,000, Rob?
No, I would never leave him out.
So you both like to keep your enemies, in inverted commas, close, and vice versa. Is that how it works?
Yeah, definitely.
And do you give each other the rub down if you've had him over for a few quid? Is that part of the fun?
No, I think we have a very open sharing of thoughts and information. We talk every race day and compare markets, and yeah, I think that the days of playing with your cards close to your chest have long gone.
Okay, and finally, Peter, what would your advice be to a punter who just can't make it pay, want to emulate you, at least just to not maybe be a professional punter, but just do a bit better? How would you tell them to improve their game? Obviously, it's a tricky one because you don't know what they're doing wrong, but
Yeah, I think that the thing to really understand, to really understand is, let's say in Australia, 95% of people lose, 3% break square, 2% win. Getting from that losing to the breaking square is where I suspect all the hard work is and the grunt work. So don't be, if you're trying to make a living at it, and you're losing, either just go, well, I'm only going to bet £5 a race and just enjoy have it as a social thing, or just accept that you're eking your way close to the break square. Once you can get there, to improve things, to keep improving, but betting within your means, not getting on the wrong leg, not putting on the pumpkin instead of your head, not chasing, just accepting. Like 2 weeks, for the previous 2 Saturdays before last Saturday, I couldn't do a thing wrong. Winner after winner, just phenomenal, just fabulous run. Last Saturday, terrible. Now I'm the same person, same sort of form, terrible, terrible day last Saturday. It's a broad series of bets. It's not one day. And I know that can be terribly depressing when the last race is run and you've done your money and you're going home, why did I do that? But trying to get out on that last race so that you don't have that experience, that is an absolute disaster. So try and look at it in the long stretch rather than focus on too short a time frame.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Peter Lawrence, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.